Good evening, everyone. My name is Dorothy Malone, Administrative Assistant to Dr. Kelly Clenchy, Superintendent of Schools. It's 6 p.m. on this Thursday evening, July 30th, 2020. I'd like to welcome you to Shaker Lane, the Shaker Lane Forum. Before we begin the meeting, I would like to speak on behalf of the school department, the reason for having this meeting. We arranged a public forum this evening as a means of presenting our 3 models of learning so that our families have an understanding of what each model entails. After the completion of the forums in each of our schools, we will be administering a 3rd survey to parents that will ask similar questions that were asked on our last survey. This information will be extremely helpful as we continue to look at a number of data sources that will be used to help determine which model of learning will be supported at the beginning of the school year. All school-based task forces have been creative in coming up with safe solutions to be available to educate all students for the 2020-2021 academic school year. We truly appreciate the tremendous efforts of the educators, parents, and administrators that are members of these task forces. Please note that we will not be using the chat function during this meeting. However, we will give time for questions using the raise your hand function that's available on your Zoom. If you phoned in, please dial *9, which will also activate the raise your hand function. I will call upon the raised hands at one at a time. Once called upon, participants should unmute, state your name and address, and ask your question. After speaking, please return your microphone back to the muted position. Thank you, and I would like to now open up this meeting to Shaker Lane Principal Michelle Kane. Michelle?
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you for opening our meeting and offering up your time to moderate this parent forum for our Shaker Lane families. We also want to thank Judy Reed and LCTV for offering to record this meeting for our families who are not able to log in tonight and to view it at a later date. As Dorothy mentioned, the purpose of this parent forum is to share the 3 plans, in-person, remote, and hybrid, in a more detailed format as they relate to Shaker Lane to allow you to complete the survey after all schools have completed their parent forums. Tonight, we have allowed for 30 minutes to share the 3 plans, which will be followed up by a 30 to 45-minute question and answer session. Before we begin discussion of the plans, I do want to thank our Shaker Lane Task Force for their dedication and tireless work this summer on this committee. Thank you to our Assistant Principal, Rebecca Deacon, our staff members, Allison Bullock, Rosaria Coaches, Kelly Hart, Kristen Mammis, and our school nurse, Mary Philpott. A special thank you to our parents who have volunteered their time, Mark Rosenblum, Emily Clark, Tasha Clark, and Crystal Aharonian. The first plan we'll start with this evening is our in-person learning plan. So at the start of our in-person learning plan, we have a brief narrative to share with you what we began to talk about. So I'm going to read right from the plan, and then we'll go through some of the precautions, the safety precautions and other elements that we wrote into our plan. So while 6 feet of distance is the ideal distance that we are striving for at this time, Shaker Lane is able to accommodate the 3 feet minimum in all classrooms with some exceptions. Preschool will have tables where students are seated 6 feet apart, all facing the same direction. Kindergarten and transitional classrooms will have primarily tables with the possibility of desks where students are seated 6 feet apart, all facing the same direction. Grades 1 and 2 will have desks where students are seated at a minimum of 3 feet apart, all facing the same direction. All students will be required to wear a mask at school. Staff will remain at a minimum of 3 feet distance from students and are required to wear a mask and follow other safety requirements as needed and outlined by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. All of our educators will place an emphasis on SEL instruction for students, and that will be our primary focus when the students come back to school in September. Please know that full remote learning is an option for families in this in-person plan. We want to share with you now just a few changes to curriculum with the in-person plan. Curriculum instructional approaches. With this plan, we are really thinking about the safety and the health of our students. So we are going to create individual math and reading kits for each student, including foundations and reading materials. Foundations in math will be primarily taught to the whole group. There are many opportunities for students to work in small groups, in pairs, in partners. Due to this in-person plan and the safety protocols that we need to follow, Foundations and Math will be taught primarily whole group. We'll provide movement breaks in the classroom. This is outside of mass breaks, so just movement breaks that will be in a proximity of the child's desks or space area. Students will have separate desks, tables, potentially with a square that we tape on the bottom so that it can remain inside their space to take a break. Preschool students will have a personal bin of materials, and we are looking into learning centers that may be utilized to allow students to work on a mutual project with physical distance. Clear masks are currently being explored by the district for staff to assist with foundations instruction and second step social skills instruction. Curriculum coverage, foundations, ELA, writing and math instruction will take place every day in our in-person plan. Science and social studies will be incorporated into reading and writing to the extent possible, and we will have some designated times throughout the week that will be dedicated solely to science and social studies. Second step instruction will take place every week, along with multiple social emotional instructional opportunities throughout each day. We do want to focus in the in-person plan on technology instruction in case we have to move between plans. So technology instruction for students will focus on the identified platform for that grade, the tools and applications to engage in the curriculum, for example, Seesaw, Google Classroom, and other platforms. For our students with disabilities, primarily we've identified a few areas we want to share with you. Students will be instructed per their IEP. In-person services will be provided by the special education teacher and the specialist for out-of-class services. In-class services will need further consideration on how to remotely instruct within the classroom. We will potentially be exploring the idea of reducing class sizes in rooms that have students with disabilities. So I want to talk a little bit more about this, trying to keep the cohorts with their original grouping. We're trying to limit as much exposure to additional staff. So we will look into remotely having a teaching assistant or a special ed teacher into the classroom. And where we have a dedicated staff member that goes into that classroom each day, we can also look into that as well. Parent engagement, input, and communication will be essential for us to provide us feedback, especially where you were the remote teachers in the spring, to talk to us about how did it go this past spring? Where are we at? How did your child perform? And that will be included in our assessment of need. Staff will communicate in writing with families if there are any changes in service delivery that are different than what is outlined in the student's IEP. So if there's an in-class service that is better supported out of class, that will be communicated to you in advance. Preference to support students with disabilities from one classroom at a time will be explored, and again, that is to minimize the mixing of cohorts. We also need to provide additional time to clean support rooms where students are taken out and provided services outside of the classroom to sanitize those rooms. There are some services that may require closer contact where face shields and other safety precautions will be needed for our staff. Gowns, masks, protective eyewear, and that is all taken into consideration, and we are working with our central office to secure those materials. Curriculum for our English language learners. Preference to support our English learners will come from students will be from one classroom at a time, grouping those students together so we can keep the cohorts from intermingling. Additional time will we need to factor it into clean support rooms that they are serviced in. And again, looking into clear masks or clear partitions will be considered for close contact instruction. Clear partitions are also going to be explored for any small group instruction that potentially could take place in the classroom and for our student support service providers and special ed teachers. So that's an overview of our curriculum and how some of the changes will look in person. It won't look like it did back in September of last year. I think we all know that. So this is just a little glimpse into what it's going to look like. Then we had a lot of factors that we want to share with families to make sure that we are communicating how safe we want to open up Shaker Lane. So the minimum 3 feet distance. So all of our classrooms have the size necessary to house classes and give students 3 feet of distance from seat to seat. Some of our classrooms can achieve 4 feet with the students that are enrolled in that grade level. Some can achieve 5, and some can achieve 6, depending on the amount of extra furniture in the classroom. So particularly our first and second grade classrooms, we can allow for all students to be in that classroom with a minimum of 3 feet distance. It gets a little bit less as the distance goes up. We cannot fit all of our students into those classrooms. So that's really our restrictive area, is our 1st and 2nd grade wings. Storage containers have been secured to store large furniture in classrooms to allow for more students in the room. Large bookcases, extra small group reading tables that won't be utilized in an in-person setting. As discussed before, we are exploring the idea of taping off a section so a child wouldn't have just their desk. They'd have some room around it to bring their belongings in. We are not utilizing coat hooks. Again, that's an area that children would congregate, and we're trying to keep that distance so they would have a little area that they would have for their backpacks, their jackets, and other belongings. In order to achieve this distance and have students face the same direction, desks have been purchased for all grade 1 classrooms. We also have brand new chairs that have also been purchased to go along with those desks as well. We are exploring the use of outdoor spaces, weather permitting, and large canopies are currently being evaluated to provide outdoor coverage through our facilities manager. As stated above, I know there was some discussion about this. Please know that all students, we have made a decision. We are committed to the safety of our students, and all students will be required to wear masks at Shaker Lane School, all pre-K through grade 2 students. Students are asked to bring an additional mask to school in a Ziploc bag to be used if one is forgotten or needs to be changed. We can certainly provide masks if one is forgotten, but that's just a safety precaution a family might want to take advantage of. Mask breaks will be conducted outdoors to the extent possible and indoors when needed. All mask breaks will always have students distance 6 feet apart. We have worked in, you'll see in a little bit in a sample schedule, at least 2 mask breaks as designated through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Health and hygiene procedures, as you can imagine, are going to be much more at the forefront for this coming year. Students will apply hand sanitizer when they arrive at the building, before dismissal, before and after eating, preferably soap and water when they are eating, after recess, when they enter or leave a classroom, and before taking off and putting on their masks. A task that our teachers are up to the challenge for. Staff will teach students the proper use of hand sanitizing, washing hands with soap and water, and how to put on and take off masks. We're just there as an extra resource to help the students learn how to do that. We are designating a room to isolate students who display COVID-19 symptoms. This is a classroom, this is a room that has proper ventilation, windows, and allows for multiple students to be in that room at a very large distance. Frequent cleaning of high-touch surfaces in the classroom will take place: door handles, faucets, handles, desks, and chairs. The district is looking into purchasing automatic hand sanitizer stations to place throughout the building, which includes entrances and exits, in addition to our current dispensers that are already installed in the building. Hand sanitizer will be available in all classrooms, and face shields and other PPE will be provided for staff members who work in close proximity with students, as well as any of our staff who are at high risk or have any underlying health conditions. The next 2 sections, arrival and dismissal, will really depend on the survey results that come in and how things change throughout the year if we are in an in-person model, depending on how children are arriving. So this is just a brief overview of what it could look like. So hallway monitors will be placed strategically throughout the building to ensure that masks are on properly and hand sanitizer is applied upon entrance. We know with the little ones, they like to pull their mask down, pluck out their nose, say hi to their friends. So we will have people, staff members throughout the building supporting keeping their mask on, covering their nose and their mouth. We are preliminary discussing having our 2nd grade bus students enter through the building at the preschool entrance to try and limit multiple students congregating through one entrance at a time. So the buses would come down through Shaker Lane, drop off our 2nd grade students. K-1 students would then enter through the main door, or we could have kindergarten and transitional at the main door and grade 1 at the side door. Again, dependent on the number of students that are riding the bus. Teaching assistants may begin their day earlier and the day later based on the guidance throughout the summer and needs of our students. If we need additional support, we will adjust their schedules to provide the support for our students. Car riders will be dropped off at a designated location with a limited number of students entering the building at a time. So typically our drop-off has up to 8 students at a time. We would make sure that the capacity of students does not less than the 6 foot distance. So we would have to lessen the number of cars being dropped off at a time. Dismissal, again, more discussion once we have the final survey results from parents. Car riders, we are discussing having our riders line up in the cafeteria, clearly marked spaces. I'm sure you've seen those dots that you can have, the appliques that you can put on the floor. We can think of other ways to mark it, but making sure that we have the maximum distance allowable for our students. Then they are dismissed to cars in the circle, and we are going to say 4 cars at a time. Walkers are lined up at the front door, also with clearly marked spaces, and we ask walker parents to line up on the sidewalk by the front portico. Staff will dismiss walkers to parents at one at a time, and making sure that our parents and our students are keeping a 6 foot distance. Walkers would be completely dismissed before buses would exit the front door. And our bus riders would go out with each of their classroom teachers. 2nd grade would go out the preschool door, load the buses. Transitional and 1st grade would go out the middle door, and kindergarten out the front door to limit the number of students interacting. Hallways, we're exploring purchasing signage, visual cues, pictures, anything that will help our students remember what safety measures we need to have in place, and ensuring proper social distancing are followed. The hallway and stairs will have arrows, lines to indicate which side the students would walk on, also in the hallways. And to minimize contact and touch surfaces, we are going to leave the stairwell doors open, which typically they are left closed during the school year. In the restroom, with the makeup that we have right now, we can allow 2 children in the 1st and 2nd grade bathrooms at a time. And our plan is to put a sign on the door listing, stop, go, red and green colors, so that students can see that there are 2 students in the bathroom and they can't go in. Students will use the hand sanitizing station outside the restroom before entering and after leaving. We'll also develop a cleaning schedule. In the kindergarten bathrooms, that is typically a storage area that will be removed so that students have the maximum amount of space in their room. And we've also explored the idea of adding waiting dots outside of the 1st and 2nd grade bathrooms, so students have a designated place to wait. Specialists at this time, to limit the amount of movement throughout the building with the students, we are recommending that our art, music, and library will travel to the classroom. Library needs a little bit of further exploration. I know Mrs. Philpott has some information on this that we can add to, but she has been looking into the amount of time that the virus can last on surfaces. We will have to look into sharing books. Gym will take place outside if possible, and to the extent possible with the weather, or a health or activity and lesson in class during inclement weather. Recess, we are going to cone off sections for each classroom with designated markers for each student within the section, rotating spaces to allow structure for students, to allow the structure that's outside for students to use. So if they are on the hardtop, then they would be there for a week, and the following week they'd be in the structure, and the following week they'd be in the field. Again, not a recess that any of us would want the kids to engage in, but again, keeping that physical distance and keeping them safe outside. We will have students exit and enter the building at the closest door to their classroom to minimize walking throughout the building. Snack would take place outside in designated space when possible. During inclement weather, classes will be split on a rotating schedule to utilize the cafeteria, the gym, or library for snack and recess breaks for grades 1 and 2. So half of the class with 6 foot distance would have their snack and recess in their classroom, and the other half would be relocated to the cafeteria, gym, or library. Preschool, kindergarten, and transitional can accommodate snack and indoor recess in their classrooms with 6 feet of distance. We'll also designate 1 recess bag per classroom. And as I mentioned before, 2 classes on the hardtop, 2 classes in the structure area, 2 in the field. We'd create a schedule so the students can rotate through all 3 areas. 1 class in each of the groups is having snack while the other class is having recess to keep the cohorts separate. And we will have classroom teachers on duty. That's an increase than what we typically have. We usually have 2 to 3 staff members. We would have all 6 classroom teachers on duty to maintain the 6 foot distance, in addition to other staff members that we could possibly support outside as well. Specialists we talked about, art and music traveling to the classroom. Volunteers and visitors. Unfortunately, this is the heart of Shaker Lane. This is what we love, having our families here. So this really hits home with us. Volunteering opportunities could take place in a virtual setting or other ways to support staff outside of the school setting. And as recommended by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, we are recommending that families refrain from visiting the school and utilize email and phone as a primary source of communication. We are limiting and not allowing visitors in the building, and that has been the guidance put forward through DESE. Throughout all three plans, you'll see the next 4 sections, and these sections just kind of give a glimpse into, all right, what will my child have to do? What will the teachers have to do? What will the administrators, what do I have to do? So they vary between each plan. We'll go through this one, and then there are slight changes in the other ones that we won't go through, but just see, because this is the one that has the most restrictions and the most information, because this is our in-person learning plan. So students' responsibilities, they will be wearing masks at all times with designated breaks, following the school safety procedures, transporting materials to and from school safely. We are purchasing Chromebooks for all 2nd grade students and iPads for all kindergarten, transitional, and 1st grade students. So they would have that in a case that they would transport back and forth. And of course, the common theme of Shaker Lane, always showing heart at all times. Educators, taking on the responsibility of helping and teaching students the proper use of hand sanitizing, washing their hands with soap and water, and how to put on and take off their masks, following health and hygiene procedures, formally and informally assessing students using grade level benchmarks and standards. A lot of this is very similar to a typical day. A few other areas that are on the teachers' plates. Utilizing online platforms, Seesaw for kindergarten transitional, 1st grade and possibly preschool, and Google Classroom used by 2nd grade. We did hear loud and clear from parents that one platform is best for students, so we're trying to accommodate that request. Educator, create and share a defined schedule for weekly assignments, provide clear and consistent communication with families on a weekly basis, including classroom updates, through emails, blogs, or newsletters. Provide feedback to students in a timely manner through written, verbal, as either by video conferencing or phone. Administrator responsibilities, provide leadership to all stakeholders at Shaker Lane, attend all district-wide meetings in order to disseminate information to staff, review and keep up to date with all DESE regulations and guidelines, develop informational nights for families. So back to school night, what will that look like? SEL strategies, parent forums, parent information nights, excuse me, in a virtual setting. Streamline daily and weekly communication for families. Excuse me for 1 second. Meet regularly with staff through large and small group meetings, and developed an enhanced system to track and follow our vulnerable students, which will incorporate work submission and attendance. Parents, the first one is probably the most important partnership that we ask you to help us out with, is prior to sending excuse me, your child to in-person learning, monitoring your child's health related to COVID-19 symptoms. If your child is symptomatic, please keep your child at home excuse me, and consult the school nurse, following the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed and CDC protocol to return to school. I don't have COVID-19. It's just a lot of talking. Establish routines at home to support online learning, a quiet space, having materials ready, dressed appropriately, headphones. We know that's hard. We know it's not easy. I'm a parent of 2 school-age kids, but the more you can try and foster that little learning space, the better it is for them. Promote regular attendance for your child. Update the contact information through Aspen Parent Portal. I can't stress that enough. When we need to reach out to you to contact you, if we have any type of situation, we need the most current information. Become familiar with Seesaw, Google Classroom, and other platforms. And just to add, to become familiar with that, we do want to provide parent support and parent information nights on how to use that information on those platforms. Check and respond to emails and phone calls regularly, and attend parent-teacher conferences by video or phone conferencing. So lunch, this is going to be a task. Our kindergarten classes can't have lunch in their classrooms because they do have 6 feet of distance. But we do need to utilize other locations in the building for lunch to allow for 6 feet of distance, students facing the same direction without their masks. So we are repurposing our gym and our library as 2 other lunch locations, and the cafeteria. Cafeteria tables, we can sit 1 classroom with the current tables that we have, with the students facing the same direction. The gym will house 1 classroom for lunch with desks facing the same direction, and the same as the classroom in the library. Library bookcases will be stored around the perimeter of the gym. So just in case you wanted to know, these are our current lunch schedules. I'll let you take a look at those.
So you want me to explain a little bit, or are you good?
Do you mind?
Nope. So as you can see, everybody, from 11:05 to 11:30, you'll see 3 grade 1 classrooms having lunch. And then again, from 11:35 to 12 o'clock, 3 grade 1 classrooms having lunch. So at each of those times, we will utilize, like Michelle said, the gym, the cafeteria, and the library. So 1 classroom at each of those times will be in each of those areas for lunch. 12:05 to 12:30, all the kindergarten classrooms will eat at the same time because they do have the 6 foot distance space in their room to be able to take off their mask and eat their lunch in their space. And then you'll see again, the same thing happens from 12:35 to 1 o'clock and 1:05 to 1:30. That'll be the 2nd grade lunchtime following the same protocols. So you can see at Shaker Lane, we've gone from 3 lunches to 5 lunch periods, just to accommodate the number of students and being able to follow the guidelines for space once masks are off.
So we want to share with you just a sample schedule. This is, again, a raw sample schedule. We do have more detailed ones. This is a sample of our preschool schedule. One of the themes that we are leaning towards, in case we had to toggle between multiple plans, we are going to redesignate the days that were previously Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And you'll see later on in our hybrid plan the purpose for this. So one of the changes I just want to highlight in this area is that our full day, sorry about that. Oh, what just happened there? There we go. So our full day 4-day preschool program will run Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 9 to 2:45. Very similar to what they would be doing. Snack and mask breaks. Mask breaks you'll see embedded throughout here. Movement activities, choice time will look different. Movement will look different. They will still have it. Table time will look different. It will be much more spread out and individualized. This is the 4-day full day program. So the 5-day program will follow the same schedule listed above with the addition of Wednesday mornings from 9 to 11. So our 5-day program that would have run full day Monday through Thursday and Friday morning will now be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday full day, and Wednesday half day. In our half day preschool schedule, again, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Just an example of what that would look like. Arrival. Again, they would not be using the cubbies. They would have a designated space in the classroom. Their activities, movement, choice, cleanup, mask breaks, circle time, table, bathroom. And the afternoon looks very similar to that. This is a sample of our kindergarten transitional 1st and 2nd grade classrooms. So on the left, so in any type of in-person model, so when we talk about the hybrid model with the in-person component, the subjects, the specials, the recess and lunch times will vary depending on the individual grade level. So this is just an example. On the left column, we could just start there. This is an in-person schedule for our kindergarten. So kindergarten students would arrive 8:35 to 8:50. Starting with SEL instruction through our morning meeting, moving into the literacy block, synchronous and asynchronous activity. This would be the literacy block, this would be just in-person teaching. And then 10:15 to 11, snack time, recess, mask break, and hand washing. Math, at 12 o'clock, if we have half-day students, those half-day students would go home, and our full-day students would stay for lunch, a read aloud, a rest or alternate activity, have their special in the afternoon, choice time, another recess and mask break, and pack up, read aloud, and dismissal. So the components on the right for in-person transitional first and second will look different in each grade level, but all of these components will be in a transitional first or second grade schedule. So arrival, morning meeting, specials, snack and mask break, math time, lunch, another mask break, recess, read aloud, reading to self, intervention model for students who require additional support, foundations, a literacy block, recess and mask break. 2:15 to 3 o'clock would rotate between the three subject areas, writing, science, and social studies, Monday through Friday, and then a closing circle. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca Deacon, who is going to talk about our remote learning plan. Oh, you're on mute, Rebecca.
Sorry about that. So the second plan that the district was asked to create would be a fully remote plan. This remote learning plan that we have in front of you builds upon the successes from the spring 2020 experience, but it also incorporates all of the feedback from students, teachers, and parents. And through this remote plan, we'll provide an expansion in curriculum, assessment, and other supports, which are definitely detailed below. The new expectations that you can expect from a remote plan include greater depth of instruction and higher expectations for student work, increased student-teacher interactions that is consistent across all classrooms. This includes class meetings that will take place daily with the duration determined by each team. Whole group instruction will take place daily, and small group instruction will also take place daily, which may incorporate a different configuration of students each day, and you will be provided a schedule of when your child will be in that meeting. It incorporates grades, feedback, and regular assessments in order to measure their academic progress. It provides regular synchronous learning opportunities to ensure engaging learning environments and the ability of students to develop some social connections. It will provide you with recorded lessons to support families who are not able to access synchronous teaching at that time. So you can access that lesson at a later time when it's available, when your student has time. Provide more consistency in learning platforms for students. So we listened to the survey. Grades K through 2 and possibly preschool will be using Seesaw, and grade 2 will be using Google Classroom. And that is all classrooms across the board. Work packets will be provided as well for students. Social emotional learning will take place through weekly second step lessons and community building activities throughout the week. General communication with parents will be provided once a week in regards to classroom updates via email, blog, and newsletter. And communication, we want you to know, with our family partners is extremely important to us. And throughout the week, time will still be allocated to families by their respective teacher when they are available for assistance or to answer questions. And our staff will strive, including administration, to answer all parent emails or inquiries within a 24-hour time frame during the work week. We wanted to take the time to talk about considerations for students with disabilities when we are in a full remote plan. A regular and consistent schedule of classes, interventions, services, and therapies as required by the student's IEP will be offered synchronously or asynchronously during the remote plan. Students on IEPs will need a Chromebook for small group and one-to-one instruction. Consideration will be given to preschool age students and those with complex or significant needs to receive in-person services within the health and safety parameters in effect at any given time. And staff will communicate in writing with families on any changes to service delivery that are different than what is outlined in the student's IEP. Again, you'll see below that Michelle talked about the student responsibility, educator responsibilities, administration, and parent. And, you know, they're pretty much the same. There might be a couple of bullets that are different, but they pretty much are streamed across all 3 plans. I do want to mention real quick, even if we're remote and all of a sudden it changes to, you know, the back to school in person, it's still very important. Michelle, if you scroll up just a tiny bit, prior to any return to an in-person plan. So if the district said, you know, starting next week on Monday, we're moving from a remote plan or a hybrid plan to an in-person plan, we just ask that you continue to monitor your child's health related to COVID-19 symptoms. That's all I want to say about that. So you will see that we also have created sample schedules for you for the remote plan. We'll start with preschool. So as many of you know, preschool has, you know, quite a few different combinations. This is the preschool half-day AM remote learning schedule. So all of our preschool children will remote learn from 9 a.m. Michelle, what's the end of it? If you scroll down a little bit. 9 to 11:30. So that will be the morning program, and the PM program pretty much looks the same. So I'm just going to go through the schedule for the AM program. So their day will start with a synchronous morning meeting with their classroom teacher. That means the teacher will be on camera with them at that time. From 9:10 to 9:30, they'll move to some small group instruction with the students online for academic skills, handwriting without tears, math, and literacy. 9:30 to 9:15, they will have a playtime and snack break. We do want to mention that this could also be a time for a possible IEP service delivery during this time as well. And then back again at 10:15 to 10:30, the kids will be back with their teacher for synchronous whole group circle and instruction, songs, books, projects, second step. And then at 10:30 to 10:35 to 11:30, Michelle, just scroll up. Again, there's another slot for IEP service delivery. Then we move to our full day, 4-day preschool program, which will run Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And again, that day, 9 to 9:10, it looks similar to the other schedule. You'll have opportunities in the morning for synchronous morning meeting with the teacher, followed by small group instruction. Again, a play and snack break, some more synchronous whole group time, and then the IEP delivery service. You will notice the afternoon schedule. Those students would normally, in a normal school day, they would be in school till the end of the day. But here in a remote plan, the afternoon schedule, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, it will include an additional asynchronous whole class activity with a closing circle, and that time will be scheduled with the classroom teacher for when that would take place. Wednesday morning targeted instruction will be determined based on additional special education guidance, and Wednesday afternoons will be used by staff for consultation and collaboration between teachers and service providers. The 5-day program is pretty much, looks the same as the 4-day program, except it adds the extra day on Wednesday. But the schedule pretty much remains the same throughout the whole entire program for that program too. So if we can take a look now at the K-2 sample schedule. And again, this is for a full remote plan. As you can see, we divided it up in between. We have the K schedule on the left and the T1-2 schedule on the right. We wanted to just mention, in case anybody is not familiar with synchronous and asynchronous terms. So synchronous refers to live instruction with a classroom teacher, specialist, interventionist, and or assistant teacher. And asynchronous refers to online activities, recorded lessons, independent practice, work packets, and or choice boards. And I think we wanted you to know that so much that we put it twice on the plan. Whoops. All right, cleaning it up. So on the left, you will see a typical kindergarten remote learning day will look like the following. From 8:50 to 9:10, your children will have a morning meeting and will incorporate SEL, synchronous, meaning with their classroom teacher. From 9:10 to 10:15 is the literacy block, which will include synchronous foundations, guided reading and writing, followed by asynchronous activities within that time block. 10:15 to 11, kindergarten children will have snack time, choice, and movement time. 11 to 12 is the math block. And the math block would typically look like a small mini lesson taught synchronously by the teacher, followed by asynchronous practice or second step. Second step comes in, I think, one of the days of the week, in addition to math. 12 to 12:50, the children will have a lunch and a movement break. They'll log back on at 12:50 to 1 o'clock, and their teacher will do a synchronous read aloud with them to have story time. 1 to 1:30 typically would be a rest time, where you can promote that at home or provide an alternate activity for your children. 1:30 to 2:10, we listed that as a special time. The special time will change because not all 6 kindergarten classrooms have a special from 1:30 to 2:10. But we are talking about both asynchronous and synchronous specials lessons. And then 2:10 to 3 o'clock, we will be wrapping up the day, but teachers will be providing synchronous small group and one-to-one instruction during this time. IEP services will be held and ELL, and there'll also be choice board activities available for those children who are not involved in any of those activities. Moving on to transitional grade 1 and 2. Again, some of it looks similar, and again, the times will change. The subjects will change at different times. 8:50 to 9:10, morning meeting, community building, which will be a synchronous time for your children to be online with their teacher, followed back to back with a math block where she'll be doing large and small group lessons, and they will be following with asynchronous activities during that 9:10 to 10:10 block. 10:10 to 10:20, your children will have a snack and movement break. They will log back on. 10:20 to 11 o'clock, they will have a literacy block where they will do synchronous foundations and ELA activities. They will then take a break from 11 to 11:40 for lunch. 11:40 to 12:40, they will continue with their literacy block. Their teachers will be working with them synchronously in small groups. If she's not working with that small group, your children will be working asynchronously on independent practices and reading time. 12:40 to 1 o'clock, we're calling this a closing circle time. And that is synchronous. And you might ask, well, why is closing circle at 12:40? Well, because at 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we want to give the children opportunities to be working asynchronously. So we figured we don't want them to take a break and then have to come back to the computer. So they'll closing circle 12:40 to 1, and then 1 to 3, they will have UA, which is specials, science, social studies, and that's also time in there where their teacher will be logging back on to provide additional synchronous small group instruction and one-to-one as needed. Just a quick little bit about additional information. The Google Meets will be able to be recorded for students to view at a later time. Robust professional development for staff and parents on G Suite, which is Google Suite options, platforms such as Seesaw and Google Classroom, so that parents can also be up to date with those just as well as the kids are and the staff. Availability to go back to rooms throughout remote learning for teacher materials. So that refers to the classroom teachers. I know in the spring there was a little bit of a struggle where they couldn't get back into their rooms to get certain things that they needed. The classrooms will be available for them to get their materials. There will be availability for teachers to use their rooms for remote teaching without students present. Basically what that means is you are probably most likely going to see the classroom teacher teaching from her room, because all the materials are there and they would probably be able to utilize those much easier if they were in their classroom versus their home. There will be coordinated times for parents to pick up materials such as foundations or other packets that teachers are compiling. Student work will be assessed both formally and informally using grade level benchmarks and standards to the extent possible. And then remote learning materials for students will include foundations kits, Lucy Calkins materials, which for anyone that's not familiar, that is the new writing program that many of our teachers are piloting this coming fall. And then the everyday math journals for grade 2 will also be available to have at home.
Okay, we made it to our last plan. We're almost there. So our Shaker Lane School hybrid plan. you know, Rebecca, I can't remember the term our superintendent used. I think he said that it was a wonderful phrase that he used, and we all wrote it down, and I have so many papers, I can't remember what it was, but he had talked about how the hybrid plan is a
remote plan with in-person learning opportunities.
So you'll see a blend of that here. As we talked about in our in-person land, you know, we need to really focus on our preschool students and the support that they need. Our preschool plan focuses on supporting our youngest learners and what they're able to engage in developmentally, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, remotely in a hybrid option. For this reason, we are proposing an in-person learning plan for preschool Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So that looks a little bit different. I'll show it to you when we get down to the bottom. But they would have an in-person plan in the hybrid plan. And we have smaller numbers so we can accommodate that with our students. For kindergartens, grade 1 and 2, our hybrid learning model will combine remote and in-person learning with students rotating their time at home and at school. Students in each classroom will be divided into an A group and a B group. Group A would be in school on Monday and Tuesday, while Group B is at home remote learning. Group B would be in school on Thursday and Friday, while Group A is at home remote learning. And then both groups would remote learn on Wednesday. And the purpose of remotely learning on Wednesday is so that we can clean the building and, you know, provide the disinfectant needed and the everything that needs to go along with keeping the cohorts safely separated between the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. That would happen Tuesday afternoon for our students. Our transitional hybrid learning model is a little bit different. Our tradition, due to the nature of this program, and it's, you know, between kindergarten and first grade, the class size, all of our transitional students will participate in in-person learning Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So they would come to school similar to our preschool students, provide the support and the intervention they require, and they would remote learn on Wednesdays. We just want to continue to reiterate that a full remote learning plan is an option in this hybrid model. So the curriculum, class sizes would be substantially smaller in a hybrid model, given that only half the students would be in at one time. This would allow for greater individualized attention during the week when students were physically present in school. Literacy and math would be emphasized during in-person days, meaning that teachers would likely be able to cover a majority of the curriculum in that subject areas. Other subjects such as science and social studies would be embedded in the literacy block and other times throughout the week. However, there would most likely be a reduction in the amount of that curriculum taught. The delivery of unified arts continues to be discussed by the task force as far as asynchronous and synchronous learning. Synchronous lessons will be live with the classroom teacher, the specialist, an interventionist, and/or assistant teacher. Select opportunities to live stream portions of the day when students are in the remote part of the hybrid model have been identified, such as morning meeting and closing circle, to have all of the students there together. There will be other opportunities for staff to provide synchronous instruction in various content areas to both in-person and remote students in a live stream that will be communicated individually through those teachers, where they have the autonomy to say, right, this is a time I would really like our remote learners to be on with us in person. Asynchronous learning will include online activities, recorded lessons, work packets, and/or choice boards. And we do want to share as a task force that our staff is committed to providing the best and most effective instruction for our students during the in-person model and remote learning as well. For our special education students, the hybrid learning model will emphasize in-person learning to the extent possible. All students will receive documented services in their IEP through in-person instruction, remote instruction, or a combination of the two of them. As I mentioned, with a strong emphasis on the in-person instruction. Preschool age students and students with disabilities with significant and complex needs will be considered for continuous in-person learning to the greatest extent possible. So we need to discuss this with our new Director of Pupil Services to determine whether a student would come in Monday, Tuesday, and then come in also Thursday, Friday. And again, that would depend on the level of disability and the complex needs of that child. Consideration will be given to these students to receive in-person services with the health and safety parameters in effect at that time. Staff will communicate in writing with families, as we noted before, any changes to service delivery that are differently written, that are delivered differently than what is outlined on the student's IEP. Again, just the 4 areas that we talked about before. So what will this look like for preschool? For our half-day program, in the morning, we currently have 2 sections, and 1 will be held in each classroom. So one of our preschool half-day teachers will instruct in her classroom Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and the other one will instruct Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in her classroom. Due to the amount of time needed and the availability to not have students come in half-day, clean the room, and then come in just 45 minutes later, we will combine the 2 afternoon classes and hold them in a separate room, and that will affect the number of community peers that have opted into this program. Wednesday would be used for deep cleaning of the classrooms. Wednesday would be used for Kid Talk, SST, and collaboration between teachers and staff. That was previously scheduled on Friday. If we have remote learning students, one teacher would be able to instruct the afternoon session while the other would instruct the in-person students by combining the 2 afternoon classes. And again, we may need to lessen the number of community peers. For our full day program, there will be 2 full day classrooms, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesdays, again, would be the day that we would clean the building, provide that time for staff to collaborate and plan. The overall changes to the preschool program is really moving from a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Community peers in the full day program would leave at noon. By doing that, it allows us to provide the direct instruction for our students who require special extra support. The proposed schedule for Friday will now be on Wednesdays, and the inclusive playgroup we planned for the fall will be postponed to the health and safety guidelines, due to the health and safety guidelines imposed at this time. The targeted instruction group, as I just mentioned, that was scheduled on Friday morning will move to the afternoon when our community peers are released. And the number of community peers would need to be reduced. So at this time, and that was a little longer than a half hour, so we will adjust accordingly. I want to thank Tasha Clark and Emily Clark for generating questions ahead of time, and I'm going to try and answer as many of them as possible. A good majority of them were answered in the presentations that Ms. Deacon and I gave, but there are a few others that I'd like to just address right now, and then Mrs. Malone will open it up to other questions that are out there. So one of the questions is in regards to, you know, how are we going to open up the school? What is being considered? And you know, as school committee chairman, Fontanella sent a letter home yesterday to families. We're really looking at 3 areas, considering the input from our families. So when these parent forums are complete and you've seen the more detailed plans for Shaker Lane, Russell Street, the middle school and high school, we need the input. And how do you feel? What are you leaning towards? Which plan? Has that changed from when we surveyed you back earlier this month? Fulfilling any bargaining obligations. That's something we need to take into consideration. And the most important, as he noted, is considering the up-to-date data that provides us with the state and local health information. All of those things will be considered to determine the plan that we go back to school with. There was a question about professional development opportunities offered to staff. So our technology team is in the middle of creating some platforms for our teachers. We did want to give them some time to breathe and enjoy July, but in the next week or so, they will see some offerings coming their way for the month of August in some technology areas. And then we also have the extra 10 days that were allotted through the Commissioner of Education to provide some quality PD before the start of school. One of the questions was in regards to remote learning. You know, families want to share students. Can kids be in the same grade? Can we request the same teacher? So we are not moving towards keeping the cohorts together for a couple of reasons. This is an opportunity to create a brand new class with a brand new teacher who would be the only anomaly that would not be in that classroom. So we are going to have brand new classrooms and really take that time at the start of the year to create relationships and foster that with the new group of students that are together. There's a question about kindergarten orientation. We need to consider alternate platforms. As we did in the spring, we put out a kindergarten information night, and that was a virtual, it was a virtual presentation that the kindergarten teachers, myself and Ms. Deacon, sent out to parents that was pre-recorded. We can look at presentations like this. But as far as coming into school, we would have to, it would depend on the plan and how we can safely get the students into school. The next question, I think I addressed this with preschool, you know, can we do half day AM, half day PM? Unfortunately, the cleaning and sanitization meeting, we don't have the allotted time between AM and PM. There are a lot of questions about, you know, parents and how do we do this? How do we do this as parents? We're working. How do we provide daycare? And that's a difficult question to answer. And we understand it's a struggle for our families. We are committed to bringing back our students, and we'd love to bring them back, but we need to do that in the safest way possible. And an in-person plan might not be possible. And I understand that question. I don't have an answer for providing the needs of supporting your child all day if we are in a remote or a hybrid learning. Remote learning is an option if that would be easier to coordinate something just to take, you know, half of in-person. If the hybrid is too much, you could choose remote learning, and that could be done. The question was, could we do it at a later time? We do want some synchronous opportunities where children can log in with their teachers, but certainly if there's a time that works better for you to do the asynchronous materials, that certainly can be done at a time that works for you. How will children be split in the hybrid model? We are committed to keeping families together. So we've already talked about some different ways that we can reconfigure classes. There are some families that are asked to keep some peers together because they might be working together or doing some type of shared daycare. And we can try to accommodate those requests as they come in. Because of that, and because of keeping the peers, the families together, and trying to keep families on the same schedule, that may alter some of the peer requests that came in the spring about having a friend in that classroom. There was a question about IEP meetings, and IEP, Special Education 504, SST meetings, those will all be held remotely this fall. There's a question about kindergarten tuition. So at this time, tuition for the full day kindergarten program will be collected. We, you know, didn't promote it the afternoon and in the spring. So we do have a plan to provide education in the remote setting. So we are, if you signed up for 4 days of full day kindergarten, then we will provide instruction in those afternoons during the remote setting. So we, again, we can't replicate the day, we're cognizant of that, but there will be instruction in the afternoon. One of the questions was about providing OT. I know that didn't seem to happen as much this spring as anticipated for families. OT will be provided virtually. It may require the support of a parent as far as gathering materials and mimicking what the teacher is doing, but that is something in a remote model that we would expect to happen this fall. And our nurse, Mrs. Philpott, has a couple of questions she's going to answer in regards to some health questions that were posted.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Philpott, and I'm going to answer some questions. One was about screening kids daily for symptoms. As Ms. Deacon and Mrs. Kane had mentioned, this is starts at home. It's going to be a group effort. There's a list of about 13 common symptoms for COVID that was outlined in the document by DESI called the Protocols for Responding to COVID-19 Scenarios. That list will be will be handed out to staff and families, and that's the list that staff and families will follow to monitor for symptoms. There will be no formal screening at school, like universal screening of temperatures, because health officials have recommended not to do that due to the potential for false readings. So it is a group effort to monitor these symptoms before a child goes to school, as well as by educators and staff when a child is in school. So it's so that if we do observe any of these symptoms, the student can be separated and sent to the school nurse, and the school nurse will be assessing the student and see if testing for COVID-19 is recommended. Another question I'm going to address is, especially with winter season coming, there will be runny noses, coughs. So that can overlap with many other illnesses, cold, seasonal allergies, the flu. So always consult the school nurse if it is like an acute symptom that is found in the list of common symptoms for COVID-19. We will be recommending testing. And if it is a symptom like a runny nose that's known to be related to seasonal allergies, or a cough that's related to seasonal allergies or asthma, in those cases, the student can remain at school. So the bottom line is each school has a full-time school nurse. Please reach out to the school nurse if you have any questions about any symptoms that your child may have. And we can work on recommending if the testing is indicated, and then depending on the test results, we can work on a return to school plan in accordance to protocols set forth by DESE and CDC.
Thank you, Mary. Before we open up the questions, I just want to address a general question about the HVAC system. So I'm going to provide as much information that I can for you tonight. This is all the information that I have at this time, and I just want to be forthcoming with that. So just to address a couple of questions, our windows do open. They open at a 45-degree angle. For primary students, windows are not allowed to open up. So our windows, if you've ever been in our building, they slant open. So we do have all of our windows work properly. They open. Fans are allowed. I think there were some questions about could fans be used. Fans are allowed, and they are promoted to circulate the air. Our current HVAC system, we have been working with E&E systems for over 15 years. Specifically, our technician, Jared, is familiar with our building. He has been working in here. Our superintendent and our facilities manager, Steve Mark, have been working with him to determine our air exchange, and just an update on that. So we can take in as much air as possible in our ventilation system. So really it's about the amount of air coming into the building and circulating, and we can modify that, we can change that. All of our unit ventilators have CO2 sensors. So that's an alert that, and a safety measure that we have in place. We are looking into providing a larger filter for our building. At this time, we do meet industry standards, but we are exploring the idea of increasing that and seeing if that's possible. Our superintendent and our a few other building administrators, building central office administration, will be meeting with the technicians over the next few days to evaluate our system. But at this time, we are meeting all of the industry requirements at Shaker Lane. So Dorothy, we can open up to any other questions that are out there at this time.
Okay, Michelle. Matthew Ridge.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I was listening through the entire thing, and I do have a question or two, but I also have a few points. One, how do you expect parents to actually do this? as much as I appreciate that the schools are attempting to open, you are pretty much guaranteeing that one parent is going to be working part-time or barely mother's hours. And a lot of companies and corporations will not tolerate that, even if this is the new normal. Also, on top of that, my son will be starting kindergarten this year, praying. But the issue is that mask wearing on a kindergarten student, you're nuts. I'm sorry to say this, but we can barely keep it on him just for half an hour to 45 minutes when we're going outside. I mean, you expect him to sit around for an hour to 2 hours wearing a mask? I mean...
So why don't I start to answer your first question? So your first question, how can we do this? And we know this is hard. All of these plans are difficult. Each one, the in-person plan and keeping the safety precautions in place, the hybrid plan, the remote plan. Unfortunately, this is a pandemic that we have to deal with, and we have to think of what is safest for our students, what is safest for our staff. And the implications are huge. And I empathize with many parents that have to work. So I don't have an answer to that, Matthew. If it's another question that I can answer, I'm happy to provide an answer for that.
All right. Because for me, what it is right now is I'm more worried about that with all these precautions and everything, our children are going to be more worried about their health than they are the education. And this is, I mean, I heard it's basically, even if we do hybrid, it's basically wash your hands, wash this, do that. Don't, I mean, you're basically asking children not to be children. You're basically saying stay between 3 to 5 feet apart. You can't interact with children in the same classroom. I mean, you're having kids that are going from kindergarten, which prior to this were pretty much interacting on a social basis that basically was like hugging and everything else. But now we're going to the point where it's like, even if they, with interaction, even with kindergarten, I mean, even with, if you go into playing around, you are not going to have these children just go ahead and start playing and not interacting personally. I mean, that's not how children interact. I mean, I'm not a teacher, but I mean, when I have my son go interact with other children, the last thing they do is stay 1.5 feet away and play with each other.
Matthew, I think everyone on this panel could not agree more with you. And it breaks all of our hearts that we have to have these precautions in place. I visited the kids today and a few other days in Camp T, and was about to touch one of them and hug one of them. And they are things that we have to live in right now, and it's unfortunate. And all I can say is that we empathize with you. This is not what we want to do. We don't want to go back to school with this model, but we do have to think about the transmission rate and the safety precautions that we have in place. But you raised some very valid points that all resonate with us.
All right. I mean, that's about it for me. But I mean, it's just, I'm more worried about that. We're actually rushing ahead when we should be looking into maybe, and I hate to say this because I want my son going back to school. But I mean, it's almost like we're rushing ahead, and then we are going to find ourselves in a situation where we might have to pull back. And a lot of us can't afford that. And I'm more worried that if we say, okay, it's time to go to school, then let's say a month down the road, we find a peak, or we start finding out the cases start getting, for whatever reason, something starts happening and it starts spreading and whatever. And we're like, okay, we got to shut this down because we have to go to a hybrid, or we have to go to a full remote. I mean, I don't know about you, but my kid barely listens to me halfway through the day to begin with. I'm more worried that we're setting up to fail. And that's one of my worries, is that if we're going to do this, I'm not going to say we have to hold off on it, but I'm more worried that we are going to run into a situation where we are going to fall into a situation where us as parents are going to have to change the way we do things as it is. And another parent may just actually have to quit a job. And for a lot of us, that we can't do that.
Yeah, we appreciate you sharing both sentiments, both sides of it, coming back, and how do we do that without, damaging the developmental way a child grows, and what do we do at home? So I appreciate you sharing that, and we share the sentiments as well. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Diane Prunier?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. I just have 3 quick questions. One, I think that you went through the schedule for the hybrid plan for the preschool, but I'm not sure if you actually clicked on the K through 2 schedule, that shows like the dates and stuff. I could be wrong, but so I was wondering if you could, am I wrong on that? I don't know.
No, you're right. I think Michelle was just talking so long that she just forgot.
Oh, no worries. I totally understand. So after my other 2 questions, if we could go back and kind of look at the schedule for K through 2, that would be awesome.
Sure.
Thank you. And the other 2 quick questions are the clear masks for students K through 1 that you guys are exploring. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I was wondering if you would also make it K through 1 masks for teachers as well, because I think the back and forth between the student and the teacher would be great. So, should I ask? Oh, sorry.
I think we had that in the plan, Diane, somewhere, and I might have misread, but it is for staff. It's for staff that we are promoting the clear masks. It's for staff. There is an option we're exploring for kids, but for staff. That might have been.
Oh, okay. So it's for staff, but option for students. But I would love to find out more about how, if we choose the in-person or hybrid, how we would go about getting that for a student.
Diane, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
I know that we definitely have ordered those, and those are definitely what teachers will be wearing, but that is not what teachers will be wearing all day. That mask is only for, I believe, Michelle, was for certain parts of the day, like foundations, where the kids need to see letter formation and maybe guided reading groups. But those masks are tough to be in for a 6-hour day. I don't know if you've worn one for a long period of time, but they're not very well ventilated.
Okay.
So I know that we definitely have them in our plans for certain portions of the school day for staff and students, and maybe the students who, there are certain students who might need to wear them for longer periods of time, depending on what their needs are. But just to be clear that those are not going to be worn by staff for a 6-hour day.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the clarification. I really appreciate it. And then there's one other clarification before to get to the hybrid schedule, but you guys said, I think I read somewhere, a 5-day rotation. So I was just wondering if you could clarify what that means exactly.
Yeah, so that was more for the upper grades. I believe, I'm not too familiar with middle school, but I believe middle school might have operated on a 6-day rotation schedule. It doesn't affect us at all, so you can just disregard that.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Let
me share my screen again. I apologize.
I didn't want to interrupt you. You were on.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right, hybrid plan, here we come. Okay, so in the hybrid model, as we noted before, Group A would come, actually, no, we didn't talk about it. Or I think we mentioned it a little bit, but Group A attends school Monday, Tuesday, and remote learns Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And Group B, the other half of the classroom, would attend school Thursday, Friday, and remote learn Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We have the definitions here just for synchronous and asynchronous. So this is an example of what a kindergarten hybrid schedule would look like. So on the left in this column, you'll see 2 days. This is what half of the group would be doing. So half of the group would come in. Again, this does promote more distance, a little bit. Kindergarten has the room, but we wanted to stick with the same plan for our building. They would come in, morning arrival routines, SEL meeting through morning meeting, a literacy block, snack block. This looks very similar to the in-person learning plan because, again, this is an in-person learning plan. At 12 o'clock, this is where we have math at 11. At 12 o'clock, students would go home with their half day, or they would stay for the afternoon for the activities between rest, choice time, specialist, recess with mask break, and pack up and dismissal. So this would be group A. So they would engage 2 days in person, and then remotely, this is what the remote day would look like for them. We heard very loudly from parents that we don't want kids on from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So there are opportunities to be on synchronously and then work asynchronously. And again, that asynchronous work can be done at a time that works best for you. We received a lot of feedback from parents that wanted a schedule. So we are trying to provide parents with a schedule. Morning meeting, they would join the group that is actually in school in a synchronous setting. Literacy block, we'd start off with foundation synchronously, and then the students who are remote learning would go into asynchronous activities. This would all be on their own, 10:15 to 11, having snack, movement at home. 11 to 12 would be the math block. A small chunk of that would be asynchronous learning with the teacher, and then they would be on their own working on asynchronous activities and practices. And then once a week, that would be second step. They would then have 50 minutes to have lunch and move about. 12:50 to 1, 10-minute synchronous read aloud story time with the teacher. This would be rest and alternate activity. A specialist, again, we're still working this out for as far as participation, asynchronous, synchronous, depending on the teacher's schedule. And then from 2:10 to 3, some small group opportunity, one-to-one instruction, IEP services, ELL services, and choice board activities. And we look down to transitional. This actually would be the in-person schedule for transitional. Would have one remote day. So they would have Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in person. Grades 1 and 2, half of the group would come Monday, Tuesday, remote learn Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The other half would come Thursday, Friday, remote learn Wednesday. So again, very similar on the left side of what the in-person schedule looks like. And then on the right, what happens remotely. We know it's not going to look like it did in the spring. We know there's going to be more opportunities to engage with the teachers, to have more solid activities to work at home. Morning meetings synchronously, just like above with kindergarten, some synchronous math, small group, movement break, literacy foundations, that would be a synchronous activity. And then breakout groups, some would be working with the teacher, some might be at home. I'm sorry, some would be working on independent activities. Time for lunch, literacy again. A closing circle, again, like Rebecca had talked about earlier in the remote learning plan, we'd close it down, and then the afternoon would really be up to families and what works best for you to complete some of these activities. And again, I apologize for skipping that part of the presentation. Dorothy, we can take another question.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Diane.
Jillian Huffnagel. Did that work? Jillian Huffnagel? No. Don't know why that's. Yes, she is. Okay. No.
See, Kristen
I don't know why Allow to Talk is not available. Oh, Jillian, if you can hear me, it says that you're using an older version. You're not allowed to, you won't be able to talk. Could you email a question possibly? Few people. Let's see.
Kristen's available now.
Okay, Kristen's available now.
Hi, this is actually Dave McManus. So thank you all for your time in going through this today. It's super helpful. One kind of basic question that I might have missed, but in the hybrid plan, you spoke about a deep cleaning occurring midweek. But in the full plan, if you will, where everybody's back on site, when does that occur?
That would occur on Friday because there aren't any cohorts that are mixing. So the reason it would happen on Wednesday is because one group of the students would come Monday, Tuesday, and the other group would come. They're a different cohort. If we are in person, it's the same cohort all day, every day. It's like a regular school day, Monday through Friday. So that cleaning takes place on Friday. Thank you for asking.
Got it. Okay. And one other quick question. So who is the ultimate decision maker? Is it the superintendent?
So the superintendent will put his recommendation forward to the school committee, and then the school committee will have the final discussion with the superintendent's input.
So the school committee is the decision-making body?
Yeah, in conjunction with the superintendent.
Got it. Okay. Would have been great to see the superintendent here. I'm hoping he can make the next one.
So next Thursday night, we will present the hybrid plan again for the entire community. And he will be there as well if there are any specific questions.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, everyone.
Kiki Donahue, you're able to talk.
Hi there. I just wanted to ask a question about if small groups of people maybe decided to go completely remote and do kind of like a micro school where maybe 3 or 4 kids who all lived on the same street would come together to try and log into the virtual options. Would we be able to have an option to all be in the same cohort? Would that be taken into consideration?
Yeah, so Kiki, I've been reading a lot about that, and there's a couple different articles. If we, the remote learning is an option in the in-person and the hybrid model, and we can certainly try to accommodate that. It's not something that I want to say yes to. I think there are a lot of moving parts to it, but it's definitely something we want to help families. So if there are 4 or 5 families that want to work together and have the students together and work with one teacher, that is something we're happy to look into and see if we can make that work for families.
That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
It would be amazing.
Okay. Amy Tez, your question, please.
Hi, thanks again for taking the time to talk with us tonight. We just have a few, I hope, short questions. The first is we decided to have our son join the full day for kindergarten, but I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for us to change that or make a decision to go to half day, as well as to think a little bit about if we decide to start in person or hybrid, will we be able to pull out and do remote if as things get going, we change our mind for the year?
So let me answer your second question first.
Okay.
Yes, I believe in the guidance. It asks for a 4-week notice. I'd have to go back.
4 weeks. Okay.
I have to go back and look at the DESE guidance. It would be great to have families commit for as much time as they can, but circumstances change, things come up. We understand that. I think your question was about, if you're full day at this time, you would like to opt into going half day, possibly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I actually, thank you, Amy, for bringing that up, because there's another part of the kindergarten plan that we want to share with families. We know that might be the case, right, Amy? You signed up for full day. It's not really going to happen. So we want half day program. We want a half day program. We are going to survey parents, and I'm just trying to figure out when we will survey them. The survey will come from Shaker Lane as to if you signed up for full day K back when we did registration, and now you've changed your mind and you said, you know what, I really want to go half day. We want to hear from parents if you've changed your mind, and if we even have enough students to warrant a full day program, because then we could talk about offering a half day only program in the morning. So we were discussing that as a Shaker Lane task force yesterday and today, and we're hoping to develop a survey to share with parents, now that we have this model, this is what it looks like for a hybrid and for the in-person. Are you still opting to come in full day? Because that might change, and we might need to rethink offering just a half day model.
Okay, thank you. And our last question is, we were wondering if you have a plan around notification if a student does become ill and test positive for COVID. Will there be contact tracing or notification to parents of kids who are in the same classroom, or how will that look for us?
Yep, so DESE and the CDC published some guidance earlier this month. Mary, did you want to answer that?
Yes, we are required to notify close contacts of a positive COVID-19 case, so that the close contacts, which for our school would be the students in the cohort, they would be recommended to get testing. So we have to work out how we're going to communicate that to families, but definitely the families in that cohort will be notified and recommend their child to be tested.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
She's not. Okay. Tiffany Stevens, you're able to ask your question?
Hi there, you have Cliff Stevens, Tiffany's husband. One, thank you all for doing this. This is, I know how hard you've all been working this summer, and really appreciate all the dedication to the students, to the faculty, and everyone going on. And it's unprecedented, and it's impressive how much you've pulled together in a short amount of time, and I know it's a lot to consider. So I just want to thank you all right off the bat. Building off the last question, is there a trigger point that you might be aware of where we might go from, say, starting at an in-person to then going to either hybrid, or then going to remote, or going from in-person to remote? Is it a number of cases? And I hate to ask that type of question because I don't want to scare anyone with it, but I just want to know if there's like, hey, we've noticed 5 cases, we're going straight to remote, and how quickly would we turn around on that, just so that we might be able to adapt as parents?
No, Cliff, that's a great question. And, you know, I think that's why we're trying to make these plans so similar so that we can move in between them if we do. I do think that's going to really depend on the number and the statistics of what's happening here in Littleton. I believe there was a recent publication where there was no increase in Littleton. There was a recent publication about town by town, and we're at 0, which it's great. I don't believe, Mary, you can mention if I don't think I saw specific protocol from DESE or CDC as far as changing the plans.
No, I did not see that.
So I do think that that's something that, you know, the superintendent, the Board of Health, that we would have to consider, you know, looking at the infection rates.
Okay. Thank you so much for answering that. Appreciate it.
Carrie Lavoie. Nope, she's off. Okay.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're there. Okay, sorry.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I had a question that Ms. Deacon brought up. So kindergartners and first graders are going to get iPads, but they'll need a Chromebook for IEP services. So a kindergartner or a first grader that's getting an iPad, but on an IEP, are they going to get both?
So we have purchased enough iPads for each child, but what our special education teachers have recommended is that when we did remote learning in the spring, it was much easier for students to participate with the Chromebook than the iPad. So I do believe the answer to that would be yes. I think I just don't know if it would be advantageous to have both devices. So that's a question that I might have to answer, but I do know that we've allocated to have enough devices for iPads for each child, and then our students with disabilities that require Chromebooks will have that.
Okay. And then I have another question about masks. Aerosols stay in the air for 3 hours. So once a child removes a mask, that space is now contaminated for the next 3 hours if they're asymptomatic and a carrier. So that means that these kindergarten classrooms that the children are eating in, or the cafeteria.
Oh, I think I lost. Carrie, you there? Is it just me?
I don't hear either. No, Carrie, did you drop off?
No, I'm here.
So it cut off at lunchroom or something like that.
So if the children remove their masks in any of these spaces where you're allowing 6 feet, the aerosols are staying in the air for 3 hours. I don't understand how that is a safe situation.
I'd have to look at that a little bit more. I don't know, Mary, if you have any understanding with that, but I haven't seen that. I haven't not seen it. So I need to look into that, Carrie. Thank you.
My sister's a dental hygienist, so I'm very into the aerosols right now because she's scaring me every 5 seconds.
And I just have a quick follow-up. Well, first of all, thank you. This is very detailed and obviously a lot of thought had put into it. So thank you, Michelle and staff. You mentioned the air filtration system was up to industry standards. Is that the CDC standards on air filtration for COVID-19?
So I don't want to speak to something that I don't know the granular information for. So I just know that, that the communication that our superintendent has had with Chairman Fontanella is that, we are currently using the industry standards, and I can't ask. It's the industry standards that are set for schools and commercial buildings. I can't speak to that. I can certainly look into that for you. There will be more information about the HVAC system and where we're being evaluated with possibly upgrading it. But at this time, I don't have that level of knowledge.
Okay, my understanding is that the new standard is a higher standard. So. Yeah, if you could look into it, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, thank you.
Meg? You're muted.
Thank you.
And you're on the screen just to let you know you had to be a panelist.
Oh.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, thank you. I just had a few clarifying questions. For the hybrid model, Group A and B, when Group A is in school, does that mean all the kids will be in their classrooms and the classes are just split in half and the desks are 6 feet apart? Or does that just mean 2 full classrooms will go in with the desks 3 feet apart?
Nope, you had it right, Meg. So one classroom, so our first grade teacher, Allison Bullock, would be splitting her class in half. Half of them, a group A, they would have 6 feet of distance, and they would learn in person Monday, Tuesday, and remotely Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, while the other class is learning, group B, remotely Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then in person Thursday, Friday.
Okay, and my other question is, if you opt to go full remote, who is teaching your child? Is it your child's classroom teacher, or is it teachers who can't be in the building due to different conditions or things like that?
No, that's a great question. That information will be determined when we have the survey results and the final determination from parents. We have to gauge how many students we have remote learning. We could have 2 in kindergarten, 3 in first grade, 1 in second grade. And we might want to constitute, designated 1 teacher and do like a multi-age instruction for remote learning. So it's really going to depend on the number of families that opt into remote learning.
Okay, thank you very much for all your thoughtful hard work on this.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Candace Morris, you could ask your question, please.
Thank you all so much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much to Michelle, the Shaker Lane staff, and the task force. The unknown and the unknowable is just an incredible job for you all to take on. So I'll make my question pretty quick. If enough of the parents of incoming kindergartners opt for half day, would there be, it seemed like the hybrid model favored in-person learning for the preschoolers. If enough of the kindergartners parents opted for half day, would there be an adjustment to potentially allow, like 5 half days for the kindergartners?
Yes, and that's the survey that we plan on sending, Candace. We just need to tighten up the questions to make sure. There's always a question that you want to make sure it's getting the right answer that we want. And that would be, if we send out and we have 100 families and 97 of them say, I don't want full day, I don't want full day K anymore, then we would go with a 5-day AM half day model.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And then the caveat to that is, what would the teachers be doing in the afternoon? we would reallocate them and the teaching assistants to support other staff in the building, other things that we have in the building.
Yeah, and then just one other real quick question. Would there ever be a consideration to hire a specific COVID monitor that supports the teachers during the day to just ensure compliance with all the different protocols and may observe classrooms and, you know, exchanges of students and so forth?
I can certainly bring that to the superintendent as an idea.
Yeah, just as an added layer of support. It was just a thought, but thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Jamie Flint.
Hi. Thank you all for working on this program. I know that it is really hard to come up with COVID plans. My question is specifically about the remote learning and the remote portion of the hybrid learning. And to explain, I have 3 children who are going to be, I have a kindergartner, I'm going to have a 2nd grader, and I'm going to have 1 in 4th grade at Russell Street. So the part where everybody's together at their morning meeting, I can understand how that's going to work. When they're not at their morning meeting, is it going to be something where they have a clear, here's your packet, you need to do this? Or is it going to be something where I'm going to have to go into wherever they're learning and get them redirected? And the reason why I'm asking is I know that the kindergarten and 2nd grade are 2 different schedules. I'm expecting that Russell Street's going to be another schedule, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to be in 3 different places.
No, Jamie, that is a valid question. And how do we do that with different models between the building? So we understand that, and we understand that families, yep, they can get on at 9 o'clock and do the morning meeting. It is our hope that families can log on to the beginning portions of some of the synchronous learning. That would be maybe 15 minutes of math or the 30 minutes of foundations. That is what we'd strive for. We're certainly open to working with families. The staff is open to creative ideas to support families. So I don't think I have an answer to that. I do think there will be opportunities. There will be times throughout the day that your child will have to log back on for some synchronous learning. It's not just the morning meeting in the remote setting.
Okay, but there'll be opportunities to be flexible, because flexibility is really what's going to make things go for us, I think.
And we haven't gotten to that level of detail because we've really been scratching the surface with the 3 different plans. And like all of you, we want to know a plan so that we can say, all right, now let's get in there and get the nitty gritty figured out. What is going to happen if so-and-so can't show up to foundations on Tuesday and Thursday when they're remote learning? And we have to have those conversations. We're ready for them. We want to put our efforts to the plan that we have in place. So I think that answer will come. We are willing to work with families. It's not going to be, you didn't show up, so there's some type of penalization that goes on. But that's not who we are.
Okay. You all set, Jamie?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Is there an idea?
Brendan Foy?
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my question. This might be getting to the nitty gritty that you were just talking about, but I have questions about the 2 in-person models, so the full-time and the hybrid. Like Nurse Philpott was just talking about, unfortunately, a lot of COVID symptoms mirror other common ailments. And I'm just thinking, like, my kids exhibit COVID symptoms pretty much from November to April. So I'm imagining that you'll be pretty cautionary about that. And I can imagine my daughter missing time at school when she would be otherwise considered healthy. So if she's in the in-person models and she's missing days when she should be in school, is there a plan in place yet where she can access those materials? Because I'd like to avoid it being like a regular sick day in another year where she just stays home and watches TV all day.
Absolutely. I think that would depend on her level of ability to log on remotely, if that's an option. If we are in an in-person setting and we have a remote teacher, could she flip into that for a couple of days? I don't want to commit to saying yes. I think that's a great idea and something we definitely will explore. Again, can she? Is she too tired, too exhausted? So we'd want her to engage if she's able to physically.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're saying that she would have the opportunity to engage, but it might potentially be with a different teacher?
I'd want to look into that a little bit more. I think one of the things, Brandon, that's different than before is, you know, when we were at the height of the pandemic in the spring, we weren't allowing staff back in here for their safety, for everyone's safety. Because they have the availability to come back into school, we might be able to provide packets or work for them that we were really shutting down back in the spring. So that could be an option that we could explore.
Okay. Thank you for taking my question.
So we're going to allow maybe 5 more minutes, and then whatever questions are left over, Dorothy, we can have them email me.
Okay, that would be great. Okay. Whoops. Okay, Julie Shorten.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for all your hard work and much appreciated. So my question is surrounding the remote learning and specifically around the kids and their ability to engage with the teacher. So I guess my question is twofold. So say parents that we can do it, right? We can get these kids engaged and we can get them on their meetings, but how are we evaluating how are they responsive? Are they engaged with their teachers, which is such a huge part of this, as you guys know, that we've lost. So I know this is a broad question and it's not meant to be pejorative at all, but as somebody I consider myself a very engaged mother, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are and how are we going to overcome this? Because it seems like some of this, you know, for the next year or two, until we have a vaccine, we're going to be doing some type of remote learning. So how are we going to make sure that the kids are engaged, even if they're on their meeting? And so I'll pause there, and that's just one of many questions. If you could answer that, that would be great.
Yep. I'm happy to start that. Teachers, if you want to chime in at any time, just raise your hand and let me know. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge that I heard from them every week. We met every week, and it's a challenge to keep them engaged in the classroom, 20 of them, and it's even more challenging to keep them engaged remotely when there are so many other distractions. I don't know that I have a solid answer to that, other than, you know, we're just going to try different models, different tactics. There will be paper pencil opportunities, the FaceTime. Hopefully the excitement of meeting new kids, being back in school online would be exciting. That might dissipate as remote learning. We did see with students, it was okay in the beginning, and then it just kind of fizzled out and they got tired of it.
I can add maybe a little bit too. I think, you know, this is unprecedented teaching. I mean, there is not one person. I've been in education for 29 years, and none of us have seen anything like this. So I really honestly believe that professional development is going to come into play here.
Can you speak to that a little bit, Rebecca? That's exactly where I'm going with this. Can you speak to that?
So I think I don't know about you, Julie, but my inbox, my daughter's a first grade teacher. Our inboxes are inundated. I'm sure Allison Bullock and Kelly Hart, and they're inundated with all of this new, I guess I don't want to call them programs, but new information that's coming out of things that we can attend to learn to be better teachers and best practices in this new teaching world. I don't think that anybody probably has a great answer for you, because nobody's done it. You know, and what we did in the spring wasn't enough. So I think that through the course of the summer, once we figure out which plan we're going with, I think that we can really start to tailor a lot of professional development for teachers. And how are we going to hit all these areas? Because engagement, like Michelle said, right? It's something that you need to be good at in the classroom. This is something you need to be good at 10 times more. So I think we're going to start looking at things that teachers can take to do a better job.
I think you guys are doing an awesome job. I don't mean it to sound like that. It's just
not at all.
How are we going to work together as moms to make sure, how are we going to communicate, you know? So
absolutely.
Go ahead.
I also think that having those first 10 days that we're going to be allowed now for work, hopefully with our teaching partners, will give us some new ideas for some ways to be more engaging with students. And it's definitely all about relationships. with kids. I know from my experience this spring that some of my most outgoing kids really didn't want to participate in some of these Zoom meetings because they didn't get enough talk time. And that's what one parent told me. So I would make times when just she and I would meet together, or us and a couple of friends, and we did find some ways around it. So hopefully we can build on that experience.
Thank you.
So I would just say one of the things about the remote plan that's different is from the spring is that we have built in much more small group instruction, which I think can be more engaging for students. So that small group time is really a time that we can try and engage more and really be able to assess where students are and what their interests are. And that's all built into this program. So I think that that's going to add a lot.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, and I would say that just as anecdotally as having a first grader and a third grader is that the opportunity to meet with their friends or their teachers, most importantly, regardless of if they all show up, just if they have the opportunity to know, okay, today I don't have to go to this meeting, but I know it's there. It was so impactful to my family. You know, and we didn't show up to all of them, but we did a lot, and it was nice to know that it was there. So much appreciated to all the hard work that you all have done as a remote worker. I know how it goes, and you guys, we really need you, and we really appreciate what you're doing. So thanks from our family.
Thanks, Julie.
Kathleen Kroll, your question?
Hi, yes, thank you. Hi, so I have a couple. For kindergarten, I know that they didn't get to do the assessment that they typically would do. I was wondering if there was, so that's kind of a two-phase thing. So for me, I was going to look at that and see if my kindergartner was even ready for kindergarten. So now if we go to a fully remote plan, I figured I'll let him try it out, but I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if he's really ready for that. So is there an option for us to start, try and see, and then maybe say, this isn't working, we'll try again next year? Is that an option at all?
I think that if you're committed to entering kindergarten, it really should be, this is the year, because that's what we've done in the past. Again, different times where kids, I want to get back and just answer your kindergarten screening question. We do have to provide kindergarten screening. I'm just waiting to see what plan we're going to go back with and see how we can screen the students. So it could, if we go back and we can do it in the afternoons, or if we go back remotely and I'm able to bring the kids in and figure out a way, that screening does have to take place. So that's the first thing. It really, I think it's a personal decision. I think you need to, just talk it out and say, is he ready? Not often have I seen in 23 years a child be pulled out of kindergarten, but again, it's different times.
I just think with the remote option only, I don't know if my kindergartner could sit in front of a computer and learn that way, but we'll see. Yeah. My other question, and I'm sure you guys put a lot of thought into this, and there's definitely a good reason why, but I was curious why you chose to go with the two-day option instead of for the hybrid instead of week on, week off.
So our superintendent and we are committed to providing as much face time as students with our kids and having them in front of us, and having a whole week where they would not be engaged with their teacher face to face was really not where we wanted to that wasn't the direction we were moving towards. We were moving towards being able to see them every week as much as possible. We do know that our hybrid plan for kindergarten has a heavy component of remote learning, and that's why we are going to survey the parents to see if we should move towards an AMK program.
Okay. And lastly, I don't know if you know this, but has there been any talk about the Tiger's Den option? Is that going to be an option at all in any of these plans? Would the school even be set up to support that?
So I haven't spoken directly with Martha, but she has been working with her team to offer Tiger's Den in a hybrid plan and also an in-person plan. So I know that like I said, I haven't discussed that with her personally, but those are the two plans that she is planning on offering before and after school care.
Okay, thank you so much for everything that all of you have done over the past 6 months. You guys have been great. So thank you again for this and for answering my questions and for tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you, Kathleen. Dorothy, can we take one more question tonight?
Sure. We have 11 left, so I was going to ask you how many would you like? Okay, we'll do the next question. Sherry Cook, your question, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm a little lost because I got disconnected and then I couldn't get back into the meeting when you guys were going over the hybrid model and the remote model. So I feel a little bit like out of place. So first I was wondering, is there an option? Because I know only 100 parents have been able to get into this meeting today, and there are way more than 100 students. And is this going to come over to us, this information, your PowerPoint, your presentation is going to come over in an email to all of us and to the parents that didn't get to even hear anything thus far?
No, thank you for bringing that up, Sherry. So this presentation is being recorded by LCTV. Dorothy, I don't know, do you have the information on how this will be sent out to parents?
Judy, do you want to speak to that or would you like me to?
Either. I did put out on Facebook the links to all of the Zoom meetings that are happening for all of the schools that also have the links to our on-demand site and what channels they're airing on. So as far as only 100 people getting to see this, it has been aired live, both streaming and on the local channels. And then when it is done, I can post it out in the moms group if you'd like.
That would be, Judy, if I could have that link, I could send a blast out to all families as well.
Sounds great.
And you can also see it at any time on LCT Live on demand. Judy, if I'm correct, you could watch it at any time.
Yes, you could see it. Once I finish processing it tonight, it will be up on LCTV on demand.
Okay.
And that's the link that I will send to Mrs. King.
Okay. And if I could suggest, if everybody does get a chance to watch it or rewatch it, if your questions weren't answered, as Michelle said, please email her questions. That would work fine.
So I know that I'm only supposed to be asking one question, but I wanted to piggyback on something as far as like us parents that have multiple students. Like my youngest is in preschool and my oldest is going into kindergarten. And at the end of the school year last year, I couldn't even get my preschooler who really, I mean, he's kind of nonverbal. And I couldn't get him to even sit down for 5 minutes in front of really any of the class settings that were being offered. And I'm wondering like how that's going to work going in the future, like the parents' accountability and responsibility. Like how much onus is this? I mean, it's very difficult when you have multiple kids going into, especially that are so young, and have also disabilities that I'm not equipped to teach my child. If I was, I feel that they wouldn't be in the predicament partly that they're in currently. And I'm wondering, like, are there other supports that are going to be offered if we're doing remote learning or hybrid learning to help us parents teach them better? Because we're not teachers.
Yeah. Mary, just to answer your question, so our students, I don't know if this call might have dropped, but our most vulnerable students and our students who require really specific needs, we are going to try to provide as much in-person learning and in-person instruction and service delivery through IEPs as we can with the safety measures that we have in place. That did not take place this spring, but we are committed to trying to do that as much as possible. We know we worked with families this spring that, started off and just said, I can't handle this. I'm dealing with the pandemic. I'm not ready. And some of them came back in a couple of weeks and said, you know what, things have calmed down. I think I want to try a live meeting. And we worked with them. We put some expectations for parents and administrators and staff and students just to put it out there. But we're a partnership and this doesn't work if only one person is driving that bus. We're in this together, and we're working with families to say, all right, what can we do to support you? How will this work with you? What is something we could think of? So we're open to working with families. I think it's just a real individual case with each family and the needs that they have.
I keep getting mute.
Sherry, there was a lot of background noise, so I hit mute for
sorry,
you. There
guys.
you go.
Are you all set,
Hey,
Sherry?
Mom.
Oh, yes, thank you, Brayden. I think that's everything because he's going to interrupt.
Are you finished
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
So I just want to reiterate, as Dorothy mentioned, please send your emails to me. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. I may not have that answer. I can look into them, as I will tonight. And again, that we will be conducting one more survey after all of the parent forums are held next week with the other 3 schools. So that might come later at the end of next week or early the week after. I just want to say on behalf of our team, thank you for working with us. This isn't easy. We know it's not easy. In person isn't, remote, hybrid. We are just committed to providing the safest way to bring the children back to school. And thank you for working with us.